Hola, everyone. I'm Veronica Bartolini with Codebreaker Real Talk, Unchained Hearts and Unchaining Hearts. And guess what? Today we have a very special guest, first time on ever, John Whitberg. And of course, I have my co-host Eve Howard and Celeste Chaparro. And I am so happy you're here, John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I had to attend a funeral of a very dear friend this morning, but other than that, I'm doing okay. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry to do that.
Yeah, I mean, oh well. So
Yeah.
where should we start this?
In the beginning, give me, any thoughts of how we're very different as children. We never we never fit in. We were constantly tested, and it's not until later when we find out in our life that wait, all this makes sense now because there's disclosure on Supersoldier programs. And the IBIS program was one that I was in with Max Spears and James Caswald. I have memories of them as well as you do. We talked previously. So, I read, you told me about Project Vega, and
Well,
that's your information. So wherever you want to start from the beginning, perhaps your childhood memories or whatever you'd like to do. Thank you.
I have what I call it the anchor memory that never went away, that when I discovered this side of reality, that was the first one that I interrogated, I guess you could say, that made me realize I was a part of this, where I'm laying in bed, I'm 6 years old, and this portal opens in the wall, and this woman, I'm not sure if she was like a Nordic alien or if she was a German woman who was genetically modified, because she was like 10 feet tall. And she stepped through this portal in my bedroom wall. She had on a Nazi uniform, and I couldn't move at all, and I was frozen in place, and then I got picked up and levitated through this portal. And I'm piecing together currently how I got involved in this. I have some very faint memories of possibly being tested at school in kindergarten and or in first grade, but I also know from researching my family tree that we're of the bloodlines, so I was kind of destined to be involved anyway. Like, so I'm not even convinced that I did undergo any testing, but I haven't explored those memories yet. But
How about in school? Were you tested in school? Just like hearing tests, did you have any bloody nose or bloody ears, when you would wake up, like some of us? Did you get blood taken out every like 6 months, like some of us did? Were you in special classes, anything like that you can remember? Because those are bleed throughs.
yeah, I've had memories. I do know my blood was taken a lot. My family just pulled in the driveway. I'll be back in like 10 minutes, okay? Okay, so where did we leave? Oh, after I got pulled through this portal and all of that, at some point, I don't remember the phase where I transitioned from being levitated through this portal to suddenly I was in the back of an armored military vehicle with a bunch of other kids. and they weren't all Americans, by the way. There were 2 girls who were speaking Chinese in there, and there was, I remember one boy who was speaking Spanish, but anyway, so there were kids from all over the place, and we went to Cheyenne Mountain Base. And that's where the memories of that are very faint, because they kept me in, like, I'm sure I was on drugs. I'm sure I was being hypnotized constantly. I was in some sort of a fugue state where, like, I was very aware psychically, but on a physical level, like, I couldn't even dress myself. Like, and I know there was a lot of testing that's done, like seeing if I could open portals, seeing if I could levitate stuff, and it was discovered that my 2 true talents were technology interfacing and interspecies communication telepathically. And so those are the things I wound up doing. But from there, I was the actually clear memories begin when, at the end of that phase, where all of us kids walked through this portal to, well, this facility was on somewhere on the North Pole of the moon. Because I remember we got into this shuttle immediately after going there. We walked straight through the portal, and we were just walked right to this shuttle. And we got on. I looked out the window, and it went up, and these doors opened overhead. And looking down, you could see the North Pole of the moon and the Earth off in the distance. And so we went on from, the shuttle took us to a mothership, and they opened a wormhole, and we went to Vega Prime, which that's where these are, combine this, the Vega Prime stuff with my Solar Warden stuff, and you'll get around 80% of my memories. I do have some from other projects I was in, but those 2. But anyway, so Vega Prime, there was this colony called New Munich. It was a human German colony, and it also had a Japanese population and a Greek population. And so I remember getting off the drop ship there, and we were in this, like, it was in this hangar bay type of thing on the top level of a skyscraper. So it was like I guess like a spaceport. And there was, we got off, we were saluted by a long row of soldiers, because we were, and there was some sort of banner up saying something about how they were, like, welcoming the next generation, basically.
Did the banner have something on there?
No, it was just a yellow banner with black letters on it. There was a big red carpet that had a Schwarze Sonne symbol, or a black sun for our English speaking audience. And we went down an elevator, to words come to me, words to the street level. And we got into this, it looked like a bus from the 1930s, but it had no exhaust. So it must have had like a plasma engine or something in it to replace the old one. But other than that, you couldn't tell the difference. And we got on that. We went to another building. I remember we drove through what I believe it was called the Garden District of the city, where they had these skyscraper greenhouses where they grew food for the colony. And we pulled up at this other building, and on the ground floor, there was this weird arrangement of like bathrooms that were, they were like closet-sized bathrooms that also had showers, and they were sound operated showers. They didn't use water, but we stepped into that. When we stepped out, our uniform, our school uniform, was there to put on. And of course, I didn't know how to put this thing on, so I'm just standing there staring at it, trying to figure out how I'm going to wear this. When this German guy bursts in, and he's like, "Kid, some of us need to use the bathroom. What's taking so long?" And I said, "How do I put this on?" And so he helped me put this uniform on. And this guy, I've had a number of memories of him. At this point, I was 6 years old. He was about 19. And he took a shine to me. And during my time on Vega Prime, he was essentially my older brother for all intents and purposes. And like, I'm going to start crying if I talk about him too much, but he was a very dear friend, and it was very tough remembering him because he's not here. And like, so yeah, he helped me get this uniform on. Then we got on the bus again, and we finally went to our boarding school, which was these two brick buildings. There was a wall around it. It looked very much like a traditional European type of place. It was like neo-Gothic architecture, if you know what I mean by that.
What color were your uniforms? Did it have any insignia on there?
It had a patch with, I'm trying to remember the patch actually. I think the patch was just like, oh, the patch was the solar system around this star. It had the blue star of Vega, and it had a huge Earth-like planet, which was where we were, and a couple of other ones. Oh, and it also showed the two moons of Vega Prime, because those also have stuff on them. I haven't been there, but I was aware that there was stuff there. And so, and the uniforms, they were black 3-piece suits for the guys they looked like they were from the 1920s or 30s. And the ties, we had neckties that were pale green with gold stripes. And so there were these two brick pretty good sized brick buildings. One of them was where we had our classes, and the bigger one was where we lived. And they were dorm rooms. The first floor was all girls, the second floor was all boys. And it's funny, I can't, whenever I try to properly visualize this, I can't quite remember what the girls' uniforms looked like. But which is kind of strange, but anyway, so we went there. They gave us a little walking tour of the, I guess you could call it the campus. And then we were taken to our classroom, or our orientation room, I should say. We only used it for orientations and for like school events. There were separate classrooms for each subject, but this was like a big collective auditorium in the basement of the main learning building. I hope I'm making sense with these descriptions, because like I know that like I'm not the
Yes,
best person. Okay, I know I'm not the best person at describing like architectural layouts.
don't worry. It's
But
okay.
yeah, but we were each assigned a seat, and there was like one of those virtual reality headsets. And keep in mind, this was no later than 2007. This was before people even knew about like VR stuff, but that's what we had, and they looked actually even more advanced than the ones we have today. And so we put them on our heads, and they gave us a little rundown about like why we were here. We were told Earth was destroyed and that we were refugees. And that we were told, I don't remember who they blamed the destruction on, considering the group, very possibly it could have been the Jews, but they said that there were biochemical weapons detonated on Earth that had made the atmosphere unbreathable, and that it would be unbreathable for around 10,000 years.
They told us the same story also in Mars. Oh, Earth is gone. So yeah, they were trying to lie to us.
Yeah. And there's I don't know if we'll have time to get to it on this show, but there is also out there in the colonies, there's also a disclosure movement. Like there's like people trying to expose the slave trade out there, and expose that Earth is still around, and that most of us being recruited are not volunteering for this and all of that. Because your average person out there is just as in the dark as we are. They just happen to have better technology. That's the only difference. And so that's a whole side thing, but we were told Earth was destroyed. We were refugees. We were told we were on Vega / New Munich. That we were given a little bit of history. We were told that these people were Nazis. That we were told, yeah, they told us they were Nazis. They didn't use that term, of course, but they were. And they said that Hitler was right about everything except for the racial stuff. And that was a mistake on his part, which no shit. And they, and so after that, we And the next day we started our proper classes. And to be honest, the stuff that we learned in these classes is still very vague to me. I remember learning a lot of stuff about like German literature and Norse literature, and they teach physics differently. They teach something akin to electric universe theory, which oh, and they taught us quantum mechanics, and they taught us that quantum mechanics are an actual thing that are important and relevant to us. Because in school here, they give you a very basic overview of quantum mechanics, and then they say, this isn't going to be relevant for thousands of years, so you don't really need to know about it. But up there, people know about wormholes, they know about like time travel and temporal anomalies and all of those things, big words. But they started teaching us that. They also started teaching us fully immersion German classes. And we began to get punished if we spoke any English or any other languages, because there were a couple of Russian kids, I think. There might have been, yeah, there were some Japanese kids.
That's interesting that you bring that up, John, because a lot of us were in ESL, English as a second language, and you know, we had problems learning English, even though I shouldn't say have problems learning English, just the syntax, because not only in Italian, Spanish, I think in some words in German, I know that some words in German derive from Latin and it's backward. So I know me, when I speak, I always go from right to left instead of left to right that they teach us here. So now when I read, I just read in the middle and I catch everything. So a lot of us were taking, like Celeste was saying earlier, she was taking the ESL as well. But go ahead, yes.
Yeah, so that makes sense. And I remember an incident where after I was mostly fluent in German, I raised my hand in class and I slipped into English. And the teacher brought me in front of the class. She whacked my hand with a ruler and she said, if you have something to say, you say it in German or you don't say it at all. And I learned my lesson after that. And so I remember quite a bit about life in the in the colony, and how we were eventually, after like the first like year or so, we were encouraged to wander around in the city. And the city, actually, it had a huge fence around it, so there wasn't really any danger of us walking outside of it. But there were elevated walkways. They came about halfway up the skyscrapers that they connected all of them, and they had like parks and stuff in those walkways. And because Vega has a blue star, it's really intense for us, like the radiation. And the native inhabitants of the planet are actually blue. But so also a lot of stuff was underground. or just below street level. And one thing that clearly has come through is this entertainment complex that was it was built by the Japanese, actually. And it was a skyscraper that looked like a Japanese pagoda. And it had a movie theater and a stage theater.
A massage parlor.
Probably. I was never of the age where I would have been to that, because I left when I was 19. So, but there probably was something like that. And there was a very expensive and fancy restaurant on the top floor, which, have y'all seen Ghost in the Shell?
I have not, but Celeste has.
Okay. So Celeste, you know what I'm talking about when I talk about in the opening scene. There's that scene where she goes into that restaurant, and there's the robot waitresses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that it looked just like that. I'll send Veronica and Eve. I'll send y'all the clip. And so we would go up there occasionally. And I remember going into the theater and watching like German opera and like German plays and like Greek plays, like old, like Oedipus Rex. I remember watching. I remember watching also Japanese stuff like kabuki theater type stuff. And below, well, underground below this pagoda, there was this huge swimming pool. And
Was it white outside, and then did it have like some tall trees? I have
yes,
a memory that I was outside by the pool, and it's all white, and they have some beautiful trees, lush green trees, and there was Asian men around me, and I was like trying to run away.
yeah,
They're
that's,
escorting me, and I'm like, no, I don't want you to touch me. Escort me, no.
yeah, there was around the pool, there were like underground botanical gardens and stuff. So that sounds about right. Yeah, that's interesting. So you've been on the same planet I was.
Yes, and that's when we spoke privately the last time, and I said the way I had this memory come is that I was in a room with two Asian men, and then they gave me like a sifter, and I'm like, what is this, rice? Because it looked like rice on top, and I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to sift? And they were in white, I was in white. I go out of this room, and it's kind of like a gem show there, but all over the ground we walk on crystals of all kinds of colors. And then after that I go outside, and that's where it's like the botanical gardens that you said, real beautiful. And behind, I'm looking this way, like, and behind the one Asian man is in front of me, the other one's behind me, and behind him there's like a terrace of it's like square wood
Uh-huh.
that's in interlayered. It's very fancy there, and that's that memory. So pretty interesting.
Yeah. I don't remember the place with the crystals, but there were. Didn't you tell me also you went shopping there or something?
Yes, I did. I did. And
Okay.
there was a very tall white man in a suit, and there was all these ladies around, a lot of people around, and there was what's weird, I don't know why I'm thinking about it right now, but there was a table, and I've talked about this before, and they were selling these red roses. And I told the lady, how much were the roses? You know, I was carrying my thing of crystals. And she said, I don't remember how much she said, and I paid her. And then she said, they're for you.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, there was a lot of people around, people that didn't look like Americans, you know,
Mhm.
here, dressed very differently. Mhm.
Yeah, I don't remember places with crystals, but I do know there are a lot of shops in the underground area. There's like, I think that the underground section was modeled after Tokyo. Uh, if you look up, there's travel videos of these very long underground tunnels full of shops and restaurants in Tokyo, and it was just like that.
I do remember another memory, it was a very tall, one of those buildings that they have like in the Tokyo, where they have brothels, and it's like a very old world kind of a thing. And I was wearing a geisha uniform. Like, what the
Really?
heck? So I don't know if it's there or not.
Yeah. Well, there are other colonies that have Japanese people. I do. I remember another one where I got thrown out of a bar for not being Japanese. Um, Even though I did speak it fluently, I was still a gaijin. So, and I remember the people who worked at the bar were yakuza, and they looked just like they do in Kill Bill. Like, I promise I'm not making this up. They had on the suits and those masks with the just had the two eye holes, and they were carrying katanas. And they threw me out of this bar, but that's in a different that was a different planet. So could be there too that you were. And I anyways, there was this massive swimming pool, like a few square miles. Um, and it had deep parts and shallow parts, and there was a part it had artificial waves and stuff. It was a really cool kind of like underground, like escape area from the chaos of the city. Uh, and there is other stuff I remember about Vega Prime where the vegan people, the natives species who are they're not they are actually a different species of human, but they don't look hardly anything like us. They look kind of similar to the beings in Avatar, but they're a lighter color and they're not that tall.
I wonder if those beings are the beings that some of the blue beings are under Antarctica, and they're taking care of a blue cube that I remember. And the blue cube ties in with the black cube in Saturn, ties in with the Egyptian pyramids, the sun and the moon. Now, the black sun is actually a part of Illuminati, as we know, and they have projects like the Black Rock, the Black Sun. And I know that twice a year they meet to find out who's going to be the next president, whether it's in the USA or who's going to be the next in charge in other places here on Earth. So yes, Avatar is. They also have the blue rock in the actual movie, and that is what brings life connected to Awa,
Yeah.
and that's what the military was after this whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
It's real.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, when we talked privately, I discussed a little about a planet called Centurion that I think was the inspiration for the planet in Avatar, because it's nearly identical, except the only thing that's different is that I remember you could actually breathe the air. You didn't have to be in an Avatar body to breathe it. You could breathe it just fine, but other than that, it was almost exactly the same. But anyways, on Vega Prime or New Munich, whichever you prefer, I have a picture that someone sent me a few days ago that it's this artwork that looks just like the Japanese district. That it's governed, they actually have their own mayor and everything, so it's like a city within a city. And they were even more advanced than the Germans. They had like, I remember these drones with tanks on them washing the windows, and these like self-driving trucks, like street sweeper trucks cleaning the streets. Like, you know what I mean by a street sweeper truck, right? Okay, yeah. And there was that. There were oh, I remember they had really advanced robots. The Japanese did, which that's uh even on Earth they have very advanced robots. Uh and oh, I have very fond memories of the sushi, funnily enough, because this planet did have an ocean on it. So we were able to get fresh fish, and they grew rice in these skyscraper greenhouses and all of that. And so they did have really good sushi. Um, and food in general was pretty good because I've heard stories about from people who were on Mars and stuff. And I remember this too, how everything either came from a replicator or it was packaged and had to be brought in from another planet. And it was horrible. Uh, but on Vega Prime, we did actually have fresh food. Um, so that was nice. And there's an individual in the community who Eve, if you're there, you know who I'm talking about, but I don't have his permission to say his name, so I'm not going to. That I saw one of his altars and his altar's crew land when they were on shore leave on this planet, because it's also, this place is also a very big vacation spot for the military in space and the elites in space and people like that. Um, I'm trying to think of what else I can. Oh, the coastal area. There were these in the oceans. There were these. They looked like plesiosauruses, or like the Loch Ness monster. If you've seen pictures of those, I sent Eve a picture. Eve, say something if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. I was saying I sent you that picture of those water dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And yeah, and they're very dangerous. So what they did to have a resort on the beach was they built a wall around this beach, like 3 miles offshore, and that kept them out. So you could actually go swimming.
I have a memory of one of them biting me, but he looked like a T-Rex. He bit my hand.
Okay, I've seen the T-Rex species before. I have in a different, I actually saw them like a few months ago. They tried to take over one of the German space stations a few months ago, and I was there negotiating them surrendering. And like,
Are you
that's,
familiar with Captain Mark Richards? Because he's still in
yes,
prison because he talked about these beings.
yes, I am.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
bit of that. Thank you.
you're welcome. And so I I do remember swimming there. I went there twice to that beach. It was around 100 miles west of the main colony. So the colony was a good ways inland. But the beach, I went there once with my friend who I talked about and his parents, who they were in an arranged marriage. His parents were, and like they got along very well, but they didn't have any kind of romantic feelings. So it was like known and accepted that they were cheating on each other. And like that's very common out there actually amongst families in the upper class in those colonies. Um,
Here too, they intermarry their cousins, the rock
yeah,
and the elites, and then they go off and have their affairs. I mean, it's everywhere.
yeah, yeah. And so they were in an arranged marriage, and I went with my friend to this beach. We went by a TR3 craft. Um, I'm sure both of you know about those, right? Like, okay. And I don't remember that time I went clearly, but I went once also when I was like 15, uh, in a school trip. And we actually went by bus. So the Germans actually have built roads from the coast to this colony, going through the countryside, and it was incredibly beautiful. Like the there were so many colors of the plants there that you just don't see on Earth. Because with a blue star, it does different things. Everything is like pastel green and light blue and light pink, and there's trees with like completely like bright white bark, and it's just really breathtaking to look at. And what I remember more clearly from my second visit to the coastal area when I was in school was we actually took a ferry out to look at these water dinosaurs and them where they nest on beaches and stuff. And we also rode a ferry past an island. Well, we rode past a bunch of islands. One of them is where some of the Illuminati families have houses. Uh, so this is one of the planets that they have houses on. And we didn't get off there, but we did go past it on the boat. And we went past these islands that had Egyptian ruins. They looked like Egyptian ruins and also what looked like Maya ruins. And I mean, I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone that like the Egyptians and the Mayans, they had alien contact. They went off planet and all of that. And I've actually found these paintings from it's called the Volkish movement. And it's basically the beginnings of Nazism. And these people, they were channelers, they were contactees and walk-ins and all of that. And they were basically the beginning of the SSP. And I saw one from this guy, I can't remember I believe the artist's name was Diefenbach, who he had paintings of these islands, I remember, on Vega Prime. So the relationship between the Germans and the people of Vega goes back a long way. At least the 1890s. Unless, of course, he's a time traveler, which is also always possible. But like, in order to avoid screwing with your head too much, I'm gonna just say this is all happening in linear time and that there's been contact since the 1890s.
Oh, you can screw with my head anytime. I'm following you, believe me, I know.
I know you do, but like that's where I tend to lose people, is when I start going into like time loop stuff.
Not on this channel. They're already
No,
the way I talk. I go here, I go there. Only those that know visit my channel.
okay then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where was I? Oh yeah, we didn't get off at any of these islands, but those are what I remember. And I remember seeing the aquatic dinosaurs. I remember seeing these like huge like manta rays in the water that they glow.
Yes, they do. And when I was in the Hulk program, they also I also had a trident, and the mantarraya was a logo underwater. And I did that show on another channel. And yes, the mantarrayas are very sentient as well.
Mhm. Yeah, they were. I remember at this point, I had only been exposed to like human like aliens and Dracos. I had no idea that there were sentient aquatic beings. And this one, it swam up to the side of the boat and it could tell I was telepathic. And so he just started talking to me out of nowhere about like his family and like the culture of his people. And I was like, how is this real? Because like I didn't know that anything like that could communicate on the same level or even a higher level than humans. And so that was freaky. And I don't remember if it was Veronica or Eve, who hasn't seen Dune.
I haven't seen Doom. No.
Okay, you really need to watch it.
Okay.
Put that like up the list.
Okay. Will do. I'll do tonight. Do you
Okay,
remember, by any chance, John, do you remember any black dolphins or black whales in swimming pools? Because I have those memories too, but I'm thinking that's probably in Hawaii, under where the silver dome and all that. And then there's also a white swimming pool with a lot of the black dolphins and black whales as well.
I remember those on an underground base underneath a tropical island. Hawaii does make sense. I was trying to figure out where it was. Hawaii makes a lot of sense.
It's Hawaii, yeah.
Okay. And I remember there were also these like black octopus beings in there with them.
Yes, I had to swim in there. At first it was scary, but then I'm able to speak to them telepathically, so it was okay. And then they had me teach the other children that were there. And I'll send you the video where I talk about that. That way we don't take too much time.
Okay. Here, I'll send you, there's a website. I don't know if your channel might get in trouble for me to mention it, but I'll send it to you where you can watch movies and stuff for free. I'll send you Dune on there because it's it's a full disclosure movie. Like even some of the names in it, I think are real. But I compare myself a little bit to, in the opening scene, there's the main character, and he's been being trained by his mother in basically occult stuff, where he's been being trained in telepathic communication and stuff. And she wakes him up in the middle of the night to go meet this woman to do like psychic stuff. Hey, you'll have to watch it because I'm not explaining it very well at all. But anyways, that happened to me too sometimes. Someone would wake me up in the middle of the night and I would have to go and meet an alien. And I remember I was always being groomed for the job that I eventually had as a diplomat for the space Nazis. And so at a very young age, they started me with talking to aliens, and hello.
Anyone there?
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, so these aliens, first I met a white royal Draco, and contrary to the stereotype, he was actually pretty kind to me. We got along pretty well.
Yeah, some of them are very nice.
Yeah, he would tell me about his family back on whatever his home planet was and all of that. But I remember how intense it was. They have such a strong psychic presence that it kills most people. You have to have their DNA. And so I did, of course, as do nearly all the people in these programs. And I stepped in, and it was like my brain was being sucked out to my forehead, is what it felt like. And I nearly passed out. But I learned pretty quickly to control it and to like basically latch onto that and then communicate. I remember these other beings there was a female who taught me and taught actually a lot of the kids about like defending ourselves psychically. And they were like 9 feet tall. They had very light blue skin and white hair. I don't know if any of you ladies have ever seen those or can shed any light on what those might be.
They kind of remind me of like the Pleiadians or the original Sarah Proniosis that Sarah I Proniosis that what's her name? Ashiana Dean talks about.
Okay.
The Pleiadians were the ones that took over that species, and then now they're wearing the platinum hair and the blue and white uniform, but could be.
Okay, that would make sense. And what else did I meet? Oh, we also had, because everyone in the breakaway will do military service of some kind, even if they're not people like us who've been trafficked from Earth. We had training with the Mantids where we learned how to use a regeneration tank. And I remember these Mantids, they really don't like humans at all.
Were there any ant beings? Because I remember the ant beings and the mantids.
I saw the ant beings on Europa and Mars, not on Vega Prime. And they do like us, but the Mantids don't really, for whatever reason. But they did show us how to use a regeneration tank. And there's a few other bits of my life there that I remember with my friend, but they're actually really personal and like I'm not gonna put them on air. So when I was 18, we actually did go visit one of these archaeological sites. It wasn't on an island like those other ones, it was inland. And
Is that when you were an archaeologist?
no, that's a different altar. This altar is the one who was a diplomat. But it was just part of our education in general, where we went to one of these sites. It was a field trip, basically. And they looked like Mayan pyramids, like in Mexico. They looked exactly the same. So the Mayans have been into space too. Like this isn't the first time that humans have gone out there. And let me see, what else? I guess that about concludes the Vega stuff. I graduated when I was 18. I lived there for another year awaiting my military assignment. And I lived in this little shoebox of an apartment that I guess I didn't have to pay rent because like I was technically already in the military, even though I hadn't been given my orders yet. But I think that it was paid for. And then one day I'm sitting in this cafe. It's the day after I turned 19. I'm sitting in this cafe, and this German girl with strawberry blonde hair walks up and hands me my orientation packet. And I was to report the very next day to one of the spaceports, and I was going to the Martian MDF Academy which that's actually where most of the factions do their training, interestingly enough. If I remember correctly, I believe it's to the west of Olympus Mons on Mars. It's kind of a huge demilitarized zone where all of the factions will come and train their people. And So Eve, Celeste, you're being extremely quiet. Do you have any questions?
We don't want to interrupt you. I mean,
Well, feel free to, because like that's part of why I'm here, is to answer questions. Because like I'm sure there's stuff that if you asked about it, I would realize, oh yeah, that's an important thing that I forgot to talk about.
okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I have a question. Where is it that we were talking in private about the white buildings? Oh, white,
Oh,
not the elite thing that we were talking about, but those you said they were like pretty much green houses and stuff and,
yeah, that's Centurion,
all right.
which is this jungle planet around Alpha Centauri. And it's a very important planet. Like, a lot of people in the community have talked about being there. I only know of 3 people who've remembered it by name, including myself. But it's when you hear people describe like they were taken to a jungle planet and there were Illuminati families and stuff, that's Centurion.
It
Yeah,
kind of
I
Venus too. Go ahead, Mama. Sorry.
I don't know if my memories of it come from being in the program or I was, incarnated from, Alpha Centauri. So, I mean, it's quite possible that those memories are also a recall from a previous life or a previous incarnation.
Yes.
I was told by this lady from Canada that she remembered me from Alpha Centauri, and I'm like, cool. Until I get my memories. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that supposedly Queen Elizabeth is dead, which we already know she's already in Mars, and her body is the one that's going to be viewed as not even her. It's going to be a clone. And then there's other people saying that she didn't die and blah, blah, blah.
I know.
So we're going to get, if she did die here on Earth, pass away to the other dimension, then we will get more of our memories. Just as I got my memories when President X Bush Sr. died. So,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
also like when one of our parents dies, for example, when my mother passes, there's going to be a flood, more of a flood, because they have them on, there's a program that they have them under mind control.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
To be your handler, it could be a husband or a child of yours or a friend that's your handler, and they can put, kind of like jinns, they can put things in people's aura or body to
Mhm.
keep you from excelling in your memory recall. Total recall is here, baby. That's all I know. Okay, go ahead, guys.
Yeah. So I remember, I sort of remember arriving on Mars. I remember there was this big like atrium lobby type of thing, with it was all white marble, and it had a domed ceiling, and the top bit of the dome was actually glass, so you could see out onto the surface a little bit. And I mean, all of us know that they're lying when they talk about Mars, when they say there's no life or that you can't breathe there or any of that. Like we all know that that's not true. So I won't go into that, but I do remember kind of the orientation in this military Martian academy where we were shown, again, we were shown virtual reality stuff, and we started our training for combat. Like, we learned martial arts. They had a samurai there teaching us like how to use swords and do martial arts. there was a blonde German woman doing who did our gun training.
Yeah, I have tons of memories doing the swords, the martial arts, all that. You have
Yeah.
to be trained in everything, in all the weapons, you know, whether it be plasma or knives.
Yeah. And I remember I'm not entirely sure it's when I was in the MDF Academy, but I have remembered at some point doing training on Mars, and I was on the surface in one of those mech suits killing the
Can
spiders.
you explain to people that may not know what MD, you know, and the
Yeah.
yeah,
Mars Defense Force.
yeah.
It's a it's basically it's also a primarily Nazi organization, although they are more inclusive of Americans than some of the other ones.
Yeah, and then also the Soviet Union is still they're in Venus, and then they have the Japanese faction, the Chinese faction, and then the Mexican faction too. It's not just the US. Now the US, like myself, I was born in Nogales, Sonora, Mexico. I was just born there and lived there for a year, and then we went to Arizona to Nogales, but there was a purpose why. Because they want you both in both, Mexico representing the Mexican SSP and the United States one. So it's all over the place.
Yeah, it is. I know it is. And what do you know about the history or the origins of the Mexican faction? Because I don't remember ever encountering them.
The Mexican, it's pretty much they are allies with China, and they have in Mexico they have the technology that's way more advanced than the United States. Just the other day, I had to go to the dental place in Nogales. I walked through there, and you're greeted with facial recognition. Your teeth are cleaned with laser. They're so advanced over there. I just like, wow. And
Yeah.
it's mostly with Pemex. My family on my mother's side, the Villarinos, they were all in Pemex, which is the petroleum, has to do with the black goo. And I also have Italian family members that are in Argentina, and I also have Bartolinis that are in the Philippines. So pretty much there's a Stargate there in Mexico, and it also connects to here, and then it also connects to England, to Sussex and all that. So
and it can go off
in Mars, the jump rooms in Mars. Like I was at in the Sepulveda Boulevard jump room. I'll be right back. I gotta attend to Lola. Go ahead.
So that's very interesting. I remember doing this training there. I also had diplomatic type training, of course, because that's what I became. And we were taught a lot of stuff about the history of the Germans and where they are in space, and the aliens that they've dealt with. And we were taught some about some of the main ones' culture too, because if you're being diplomatic, you don't want to make a cultural faux pas and then ruin your relations. So we learned that type of stuff. And we also learned some, because of course a big part of being a diplomat is also being a spy.
I was just going to tell you that because in Mexico, you deal with the mafia. The mafia is actually the one that's just the other day, my friend said, hey, you want to come work in Nogales? You were a cop, so come over. We'll give you a uniform and a gun, and you'll have to work for the mafia. No thanks. So it's a lot of spy, a lot of triple agents, double agents, all that.
Yep,
Mhm.
yep.
Go ahead.
And a big part of why the Germans would even initiate diplomatic relations is to find out who they can take as slaves, and also who they can leverage with information to make things work out better for them. So sometimes you hear these stories about how, oh, they're so peaceful, they're out there and they're trading with the aliens and they're in perfect harmony and peace. Bull. Like, no, they're not. They're out there, they're enslaving a lot of these species, they're manipulating their civilizations. And a lot of times, if they won't agree to trade at all, then they'll just go in and take over the planet by force. So they're not nice people. And anyways, we were trained in all of that stuff. I remember also the Mars colony that we would visit in our off time. And it was underground in these lava tubes. And the center of it was made to look like Berlin before the war. And there were also these huge mansions there, and there were nightclubs and stuff, and we would go to the nightclubs, and we played poker. And they don't have money on Mars. Or, well, okay, some of the civilians do, but in the military, they don't use money. So we would gamble with contraband, like weed, cigarettes, alcohol. I remember one time someone somehow got a hold of Cuban cigars. Like, so all of those sorts of things we would gamble with. And there was a nightclub called Der Adler, which in English means the eagle. And that was a place where a lot of us would go to. It was like the most happening place in town, if that makes sense. And
Which would make sense to me because I have memories of being in clubs, but they weren't above ground clubs, they were below ground.
yeah,
Because a lot of places, everything is below ground.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of memories of Mars. I got my Cuban cigar here. And we also had credits that, good behavior that we can trade with. And I remember I was coming home to the ship from leave to Mars. And as soon as you walk in, they spray you with this like white smoke, and then they take off whatever kind of bacteria you've gotten from Earth, and you're on the ship. That's the first thing you got to do. And then to my left, there was a pharmaceutical department, if you needed any medical stuff. And then you walk a little further, and to the right, there's a huge mess hall. And everybody was there, in the chow room. And I was pissed because the line was so freaking long. And then I wanted my gelato, and they ran out of chocolate. And I was like, forget about it. I'm not going to eat. So then Hulk mode, and then we go get my uniform, and then we go to our missions. But of course, you get debriefed and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
I remember there's brothels as well. I have also been on the gym on one of the ships for Mars, and it's with it has fake green grass, and then they have like these things that are like in a weird shape kind of like a lever
Mhm.
instead of treadmills. And that helped us with our strength training. We also had our lockers. And I do have many memories though that some of those lockers are also jump rooms.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of actually naturally occurring jump rooms on uh Mars and Titan especially, because like uh another thing that scientists are now starting to actually admit is that wormholes are actually very common and they will
Oh
just
yeah. And there's
yeah.
so many, and some of them have this beautiful music that you've never heard in your life, and there have been several times where I wake up here and I'm like, what's that music? It's like angelic music, but it's not, I don't have music on the phone. The phone's turned off, everything's turned off. And I've talked to Frank about it too, Frank and Susan, and he's heard it too. So it's at the same time though, they will play music to when we're in the sleep rooms, because there's also sleep rooms there.
Mm,
And
yeah.
she has some memories too from there.
Yep, I have memories of, and then I wake up and I still hear the music, and I'm like, where's that music coming from?
Yeah. I've but anyway, like there are these wormholes everywhere, and I've actually found patents for almost all of the technology that we remember for how to make wormholes, for spaceships that can go faster than light speed, like for how to make like force field habitats. Uh, so I can prove all this technology exists. I just can't quite yet prove that people are using it.
Right.
But
That's the
Well,
clinch,
our sorry, Eve, go ahead.
that's the clincher right there. Is, we need to be able to prove that they're actually using these patents, that this is already in, production and has been for quite some time.
yeah.
We do have memories. So yeah, last night I was watching this movie called A Beautiful Mind. And it
Yeah.
was this guy that John Nash, right? And he's in Princeton and he's a genius. And he tells his friends, I'm a genius, but he was also kind of like a dick. And so he's a genius. Oh my gosh. He's like always writing these equations. And it reminds me of my memories of writing equations all over the board and stuff. And it's very inspiring. He does get contacted by CIA, and he says, hey, we need you to break this code for Moscow and this and this and that. And he becomes a spy. Okay.
Mhm.
And then later on, the dean gets pissed off at him, drugs him up and then calls him schizophrenic. Okay. And so he finally tells his wife, because every time he goes, we'll say active, he'll have all kinds of things written everywhere on the walls and stuff like that. And um it's kind of like how I am. It's like I have messes here, messes there, but I know where everything is. And most of us, okay, most of us that are star beings are geniuses, because Earth is so dumbed down,
Yeah, it is.
And so then later on he explains to his wife that yes, he was hired, and but she doesn't believe him because he's in a psych ward by then.
Mhm.
So they call him a schizo. And there's these three people: the guy with a fedora hat with the black suit, that's a CIA. Then there's the little girl, and then his really, really good friend who was his roommate, who supposedly the dean says, oh, he was never with a roommate. It's all in his mind. Well, what I derive from that is those are his alters. But throughout the movie later on, when he stops the medication and all that, he says, oh, I'm ignoring them. And he finally gets to go to Princeton and teach, and he gets the Nobel Prize and all that. But he sees them walking with him all the time. he did not integrate them. That's what I came across. It's like we have to integrate our altars. We're always going to see these things. Okay. Like last night I was recording the moon. Tons and tons of ships. I put it on I put it on Veronica Bartolini Codebreaker on Instagram. I always see them. I take pictures. I mean, I don't want to bore everybody sometimes, but sometimes I'll go, and just go and post all kinds of stuff because I can see that. But my family and friends, not you guys, but acquaintances will say they kind of tend to treat me as special, like if I'm stupid or something. Like they are so afraid to talk to me sometimes. They won't talk to me about this stuff here. My family's like, oh, you always talk about the Matrix, you always talk about Supersoldier, and I'm like, I talk about my memories because I want you guys to wake up, but I stop because I'm done proving myself. We don't have to prove ourselves anymore. But my father, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and so as soon as my mother had a cousin who was a psychiatrist, and she started giving him all this medication, and he ended up killing himself. And he would tell my mom, I'm afraid of the sun. And I don't remember this because I was a kid. And he would always wear his dark glasses. And my mom's like, you always wear your dark glasses. I'm like, yeah, man, because I don't want nobody looking at my eyes.
Yeah.
Looking at my eyes. They don't need to read me,
No.
And I'm a very peculiar person. There are days where my altar is, I don't even want to dress up. I don't want to wear the makeup. I'm just going to wear my clothes for 3 days, not shower. And that's just part of the altar. Anyway, go ahead. My puppies are getting riled up.
Okay. I saw that movie too, and I had a different interpretation of the guy and his little girl, but I could tell immediately when I saw it, oh, that's about the programs. Like, but my aw, they're so
Go
cute.
ahead. They're so loud.
My interpretation was that the guy and the little girl, because they're very pale, blonde, blue-eyed. My thought was maybe they're Pleiadians and they exist outside of this frequency, so that's why other people didn't see them. But that
too. Yes, we there's many interpretations. Exactly.
Yeah. So now where was I about Mars? Oh, I was going to talk about this time that I encountered there's also people there who are from Argentina who live on Mars. They're very wealthy, like very wealthy. They live in like palaces, and they have very fine tailored clothes, and like they actually have portals in their houses that go to other planets where they also have mansions. Like they're extremely well off, and they're kind of they're at least at the top of the Martian SSP, in my opinion. They're not at the top of the entire SSP, because like the SSP is on thousands of planets by this point. So yeah, that was interesting. And then when Veronica comes back, I'll talk about that party where I saw her. And then I think I'll probably need to call it a day because like you're muted, Eve.
Okay.
Okay.
But I remember a lot of very wealthy people on Mars, and the moon.
Yeah.
Moons of Mars, Titan especially, and other ones as well. I'm sorry, it's just trying to pull up memories. It was something I was gonna say, but I just totally forgot exactly where it was. I wasn't gonna inject myself into that. Good.
Oh, okay.
I think it was that memory that I had of that German banner with the eagle on it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the man speaking in front of it, and he was like in a really kind of like an auditorium, or like not a stadium because it wasn't that big, but it was big.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
yeah, he was speaking.
that,
Reminds me of Patton. And I do have a very close friend. I'm not going to mention her name. She has drawings of the eagle and the patch and the banners and all that stuff, but I can't talk about it. She's not public.
okay. Well, I remember lots of Nazi icons everywhere. But I was waiting for you to get back, Veronica, to talk about the party on Mars, because that's where I saw you. Or do you not want me to talk about it? Because this is getting recorded?
Oh, no, I've talked about it before. Go ahead.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. We were, there's basically 6 classes for in the academy. And the top one person from each of these 6 classes was invited to this party that was basically an officer's ball. And it was basically showing the top people who were destined to be officers. It was showing them the privileges they would enjoy when they became officers. And this was about 6 months before I graduated from the academy. And at that point, I was at the top of the class for the diplomatic corps. And there were other ones. There was one for planetary security, I guess like the people who will guard a colony. There was a guy who was at the top of that. There were a couple of others. There was one who was at the top of the espionage class. And I know who she is, but I don't have her permission. She is public, but I don't have her permission to say her name, so I'm not going to. But she was at the top of the espionage, the spying class. And so the 6 of us, we got on this underground train, and it took like 6 hours. It must have been like, I'm trying to think of what direction we were traveling in. Okay, I know the base was to the west of Olympus Mons, because I remember being on the surface and Olympus Mons was off in the distance. And we traveled southeast, so I guess that probably would have put us in like the area of Valles Marineris, which that's a place on Mars. If anyone wants to, they can look it up. And there's actually pictures of, in that area, there's trees and like pyramids and stuff, and like little adobe houses on the surface that probably the indigenous humans on Mars built. And I'll talk about that.
Real quick, John, is it like, are they really small? Because I've been on a field trip when I was a kid where we visited these ruins that were adobe houses inside, like by the caves. They're very small.
Yeah, they were really small.
Okay.
And I'll talk about, maybe on the next show, I'll be able to go into my memory I had of the humans, the native Martian humans, because that's from a different time when I was on Mars. It's not when I was in the academy. So anyways, we went to this party, and it was in a mansion underground. I remember there were these mansions with huge gardens, and this was all underground, of course. If you looked up, you would see rocks, you wouldn't see a sky. And there were also some buildings for like administrative stuff. I'm not too sure what they were, but we went into this mansion, and there was a ballroom, and there was a ball happening with all of the officers in their uniforms, and some of them had so some of the people attending were not in uniform, and the people not in uniform were family members of officers. And Veronica, I remember seeing you there, and there are times where I'm able to really step into a memory and piggyback for a few seconds. Not often, but I can sometimes. And this time I really worked at it, and I was able to. And I piggybacked, and I went up and I talked to you, and you were not in uniform. You told me actually that your mother was an officer in one of the fleets. I don't know which faction. I mean, it's one of the Dark Fleet factions, but a lot of countries will have a Dark Fleet branch. So it could have been any one of them. And there were also Japanese officers, there were French officers, there were some Americans. There was one lady who was from the Chinese faction, and they actually were not invited. The Chinese weren't, but she had gotten to get an invitation because her husband was German. So that, and there was champagne. I remember it was really flat. The champagne was. And I said something to some girl about how could they really have not gotten better champagne, like the officers, like the top of the top, could they have not gotten better champagne? And she was like, it had to come from some other planet, and it wasn't transported properly, and it was also contraband. So we were fortunate to have it at all. And there was a chocolate cake, and there
German
was
chocolate cake, that's my grandmother's specialty.
Yep. Yep, I make it too, actually, and it is really good, and it was really good there. And the lady who cut it, she had on a white uniform, and I found out she was ethnically German, but she had an Argentine or a Spanish last name, so I'm assuming she must have been from Argentina or something. Because yeah, that didn't make much sense, but she had on a white uniform. She was a general. Her name was Coronado. And I asked that to both of you. And Celeste, I don't know your story. Were you on Mars?
Right now, I don't know anything about myself. I'm just trying to figure out what, yeah, just,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
Wes has been having shadow memory,
Yeah,
so
she just had one this morning that she told me about the breeding program. And also she's been with Max. I've been with Max. I don't know if you have memories. The breeding program, and then Celeste, she also has a memory, if you want to tell them, about Oswald, Max, and we were all there. 1 point. Or we can save it for another time, whatever you want.
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Because I know he says he has to leave pretty soon, so I don't want to keep him.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
let's do that next time. I'll keep that in mind though, because I am interested.
okay. Yeah, I need to
And
write everything down, all my dreams or whatever they are.
yeah. And so we, after the party, we went back, and 6 months later we graduated from the Martian Academy. And we were I remember the graduation. This came through to me very clearly when I was young. I was like 8 or 9 years old when I remembered this, and I just didn't have any explanation. And I've since I've gone back to that memory, and it's one of the ones I've really worked on to clear out all of the veils and all of the screen memory stuff and all of that. So this is one of the very few I have that's like a AAA quality memory. Like it's almost like I'm reliving it. And we had on our uniforms. We marched down this red carpet. Around the trim of the carpet was black swastikas, and in the middle was a black sun symbol. And up on there was a catwalk up above this walkway, and all of the officers who had trained us were up there saluting us. And they were playing Holst's Mars. There was an orchestra, a live orchestra playing Holst the Mars, which that's kind of the anthem of the Mars colony. And when we were walking down this carpet, it looked very similar to that scene in the original Star Wars where all the troops are marching and Darth Vader is up on this elevated platform and they play the marching song. It was very similar to that. And we marched into this auditorium, and it was just like you described, Eve. There was a banner with an eagle, and then there was also a black marble wall behind this podium, and it had the eagle inlaid into the black marble wall. It was painted silver, and in its claws, it was holding the galaxy. So that's the way of showing like Nazis run everything, basically.
When I was in Mars, I remember graduating, so it must have been before you, but I was told that I was in, I know I shouldn't talk about this, but when I went to Vegas, I showed them, it was a Grim Reaper with the claw, skeleton claw, and it was holding the world. And that's Black Ops. That's any and all operations that they've trained me for. And my friend who was my friend in high school, who's a DARPA agent now, he said, why did you show that? You know you're not supposed to show that. And he was trying to hire me to train the soldiers in Afghanistan that are training here in Arizona. But I wouldn't sell my soul.
Good.
That kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, that might have been a different faction too that you graduated with, because this was, I mean,
No, I get what you're saying. It's just it brings back memories of what that means, that the ego with the solar system, that's total like Illuminati, Germans with other factions in control of the solar system, and it's up to us individually to live our truth, talk our truth, and also
Mhm.
Just not be so gun ho about always fighting. You know, we gotta stay in neutrality. We have to better ourselves as a human race. And yes, when we have to fight, we have to fight. But I know I'm going off tangent.
But I know what you're
Yeah,
saying,
it's
and
just a lot of people in the SSP. They're all, oh, they're making shit up left and right. You know, it's like, oh, and then we did this, and we're gonna fight, and you know, you guys,
I-
like, we gotta live here too, in the earth. We gotta change shit here, not just over there.
Yeah.
And we are time travelers too. But anyway, John, sorry about that. Go ahead.
no, it's okay. You brought up something good, but I remember in just about, I remember this symbol of the eagle holding the galaxy was also very prominently displayed on the ship I served on. And this, it took me a while to figure out that I was actually American, even though this was the Nazis, and that they actually have a different relationship in space than they did on Earth during the war. Because now the Nazis work with everyone in space. And so that was really distressing for me to remember that, like, I was a Nazi, but I mean, I was trafficked. I didn't really have a choice. And so, you know,
Us here, all four of us, we didn't sign up for nothing and we didn't have a choice. So we get you.
yeah, I know. I've had pushback from people because I've admitted to working with Nazis, and I keep telling them, like, I'm not a Nazi here.
I
Like,
know, we're not.
I
We're
know.
not.
No,
It's
no,
just-
we're not.
we're-
I'm Jewish. Like, I'm literally Jewish. I mean, so yeah.
Yeah,
And
some of us have that bloodline too. Shoot, I was gonna say something really, really important. Oh, that it's not just Germany. Okay, it's, if you look at history, it's Italy, Germany, and Japan.
mhm. And then after the
Working
war, there was,
together.
yeah, and then after the war, they started teaming up with, like, Argentina and Syria and Iran, Vietnam.
Of course. And then, you know, when Reagan was in office, he was like, oh, the Arabs are terrorists, which is bullshit. They just wanted to go over there and terrorize the country themselves and, you know,
Mhm.
take oil, the black goo. It's very important, you know, for
Yeah.
space, black ops, black, you know,
Oh yeah, I know.
yeah.
Yeah, I know all
Both
about
sides are
that.
playing each other. So it's not like, oh, Trump this, Biden that. It's like, they're both playing y'all.
Yeah.
Okay. I went off again. Go ahead, John.
No, it's okay. I like that when you do that. Like, trust me, I ramble too. I go off on tangents. Like, I've done it several times on this show. So, like, it's okay. We all do that. I mean, that's when you have, when you're aware that there's other versions of you literally on other planets right now, like, you can't really be expected to always keep your mind in one place. Like, so it's okay. And anyways, the orchestra conducted these songs and we sang them. I remember one called Erika, which is a very famous German song. I remember we sang a song which was the anthem of East Germany. It's called Auferstanden aus Ruinen. That means rising from ruins. And in East Germany, they interpreted that as meaning like rising from the ashes of World War II. In space, the Germans sing it because they think they're rising from the ashes of Earth being destroyed. And they think that basically, like, we were taught basically we were the inheritors of humanity and of, well, they don't call it Earth, they call it either Terra or Gaia. And we were taught basically we were having to reclaim the human race from the humiliation of losing our home planet. And so we sang those two songs. Just a few days ago, I actually came across another song I remember that's O Deutschland hoch in Ehren. I'll send it to both of you. That is another nationalist German song that we sang. And then we walked up, we were given a pin, a badge on our lapels that had it again also had it was a different symbol. It had the galaxy and then a swastika in the middle, which, if you notice, the swastika actually really looks like the galaxy, which that has some very interesting implications in and of itself. And talking about East Germany, on their flag, they had a sextant, which, if you know what a sextant is, that's what sailors would use to find their way home using the stars. So, I mean, we're being infiltrated at every level by aliens. Like,
Well, yeah, like the North Star isn't really a star, it's a fucking satellite, it's something that, excuse my language, something that, oh, I'm being guided by the North Star. That's the big eye in the sky, eye of Megatron, eye of Yahweh, Big Brother. That's the first star that comes up, and I'm like, I see you watching us.
Yep.
It's a joke, man. These people.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I'm very passionate about this. Anyway.
Yeah, I get you. And but that's like I've been looking at logos and national symbols, and I'm realizing I see alien stuff everywhere. So
The ley
we're
lines, the ley lines of we talked about this all the time, the ley lines of the Vatican, the churches, where you go vote, where the education, the stadiums, anything and anywhere that they can get the loosh of people.
Yep.
Concerts, you name it.
Yeah. So basically, I've figured out that these corporations are not run by humans. Some of them, I think, are run by Nordics. Some of them are run by the Draco. There's a computer hacker group that I believe is run by the octopus beings.
Yeah, Aldebaran, basically Aldebaran versus, the Drake,
Yep.
the Dracos.
Yeah.
These wars have been going on forever.
Yeah.
And they wanted us to fight their wars, but some of us that are fully away from the SSP bullshit, we know where we stand.
Yeah. Well, in essence, I was fighting for them. I just wasn't in combat. I wasn't a super soldier. I was a super talker. If you get what I mean, like doing diplomatic stuff.
Yeah,
But
the Department of Defense has me down as a special soldier. So I get you. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyways, we sang those songs. We got the pins on our lapels. When we went back to our barracks, we saw there was something on our glass pads telling all of us which ship we were going to. Or some people stayed on Mars, some people wound up being stationed on a planet. but most of us wound up being on a ship. And I was on the USS Heckler, Hoechler, which is it's a joint German and American diplomatic vessel that I've found one person who was with me on that ship. I'm not going to say his name, but I do know one person who was there, and like, Eve, you know who I'm talking about. Anyways, and we did all that. I keep saying we did all that. And forgetting to say what we did. Like, I packed my bags, and the next day we got on a little craft, a little drop ship thing that flew up to the big ship, which was the Heckler. It was triangle shaped. It was around 6 miles long. The only time I ever got a good outside view of it was when we were arriving. They actually flew over the top so we could see the hull. And the hull had a swastika on it and the name USS Heckler there in black letters. And then we looped back around under the ship. We went into the shuttle bay, and I got shown to my office, where I spent most of my time there. The aliens we were doing deals with would be escorted to my office, and sometimes I would go down onto a planet. So I've seen all different types of planets as part of this job, making trade deals, doing peace negotiations. And I also spent a lot of time of this space station, this huge, it's one of those like von Braun stations that it's in the wheel design. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's a circular one, and it's called the Valhalla. And I spent a lot of time there. I spent a lot of time going back and forth to Mars, going back and forth to Centurion. We visited Epsilon Reticuli, and I've been here a while. I'm getting tired, and my phone battery is about to die. So I'd like to cut it here. I will talk about my service on our next show.
That sounds great. Thank you, John. Where can people get a hold of you before we go?
Facebook, under my name, John Whitberg. And yeah, I'm on Messenger, and I'm assuming, well, I'm able to message you on Instagram, so I'm guessing they could reach out to me there as well, but I don't use it really. But
I don't have Facebook, so you can either message me there or message me directly on my text or call anytime. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate you being on with us, and it's an honor.
You're welcome. I'm getting interviewed by someone else next Friday, but the week after that, I'm free. So, okay, I'll see you, I guess, in 2 weeks.
Thank
Okay.
you. Love you, brother.
You're welcome.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Link.
Thank you, Abe
Bye.
and Celeste and Eve and Celeste. Go ahead and tell people where they can reach you before we go.
Eve, you're muted.
I do that every time. There should be like a buzzer that you guys could hit. And it buzz means like, "Zzz," okay, you're on mute, dummy. Sorry, I could hear Celeste giggling. It was like I know something was up, and then she was like, dip, dip, dip. Okay, you can reach me on Facebook. That's Eve Howard. I'm on Messenger. I am a Reiki Usui Reiki practitioner. So I have in the name of my where you can reach me for that is Rising Spirit, and that's also on Facebook. You can, it's right, you can, I think when you try to search me on Instagram, it'll be Evieshschimivie, or it also, I think, Veronica, doesn't come up as Rising Spirit.
Spirit Reiki.
Okay, so Rising Spirit Reiki, you can message me off Instagram. I think on, I gotta redo my email because it has my married name and I don't even want to say it because I don't want to give any power to that part of my life anymore. So I think that's about it. So Celeste.
Thank you.
So I can be reached at my first and last name that you see right there at gmail.com, or Celeste Plantagenet York on Instagram. That's about it. I'm just a Celeste trying to figure out what I am.
My alpaca being. Thank you.
Ophelia.
Yeah, we're Star Family. So I just recently got on Truth Social. Someone told me about that Truth Social app. I'm on Telegram. Instagram is Veronica Bartolini, Codebreaker Real Talk. Instagram Lisa Monroe for women over 50 rock for nutrition. And then the other one is Lisa Amore for my books and glass decor. I do readings, hex removals. I have a BHT, behavioral health tech. I'm a recovery coach. I do everything. Pretty much. Anyway, love you guys. I am so excited about today, and I'm very, very honored, and I'm humbled by this experience. Thank you, Ev, for making this happen. Thank you, Celeste, for being here, Mama. Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.